Okay, we've seen how easy it is to step through the code using the Android Studio debugger. At this time, let's see what the code actually looks like when we want to look at the variables. Let's start the debugger. Let's go to our virtual device, type in some values, and select Calculate. You can see it stopped right where we expected it to at the breakpoint in Calculate Sum. Now if we step through this, we have the get string executed and returning a string value that was in the string.xml table. The string was called good-by right there, and it gives us evidence that our code is working. That's a good sign. So let's step one more time. And you can see now my primitive int called first was assigned a value of 567. Another step, and you can see the primitive called second was assigned 876. Again, that's what we wanted. Now the next line of code takes the first two values and adds them together. We want this to add up to the correct value and be assigned correctly to the integer object called result. So let's see if that actually works. It looks a little different. It's 1443. That would be the correct value. But the interesting thing is it's in quotes. And why it is in quotes is it's not a primitive, it's an object. We did the upcast to a object of type integer. This looks a little bit different now. You can see it says java.lang.integer. We could expand this if we wanted and see that that object, the very first field is the value without quotes, 1443, and then some other things here. So at this point, we know things are working pretty well. We have been able to obtain the values from the fields, assign them to the variables, do the calculation, and add up the first and second values, assigning the results to a integer object. That all worked correctly. So at this point, we have good cause to believe that this is working correctly. I can hit this button now to resume the program and see if the results populate correctly on the Android virtual device. It's grayed out now. That means there were no other breakpoints to be hit. The value is indeed 1443 in this field, like it's supposed to be. Things are working great, and we debugged through this code. In this, we can say stop, and this will stop the debugger itself. We could pause it. We could go back and add more breakpoints somewhere else if we wanted. The point of this lesson was how to look at the variables, how to analyze them, and see how easy it is to view the variables. So if we went back for just a second to the AVT, and I hit calculate again, come back to the code, something we didn't look at was this object. Now this is the object that has all of the instance variables that we are working with currently. You can see the button calculate, the text value first, and so forth. If we shrink this down, the other very interesting thing is the view object that was passed in. Why that's interesting is I can see right away this is an android.widget.button object with the ID/button. It gives me some idea as a programmer what's happening. If I didn't know what was going on with this method, it might be tricky for me to track down what widget is causing this action to happen. Based off this information, I can look for ID button and find all this. We can even expand this out and see all the variables pertaining to it, their metrics, fonts, and so forth. See the layout, all of the values associated with this widget. You can also see that the text was called calculate, something else I could look for. But we already know there's other shortcuts to find out how to get to where this method came from. This just gives us more information.